The sound of engines echoed through the dusty road of Okoloma that morning. Children ran after the convoy of black SUVs, shouting with excitement and curiosity. No one in the small village had ever seen such expensive cars before. Doors opened, and a tall man in a dark Italian suit stepped out, his face calm, confident, and unfamiliar to most. But one old woman gasped and dropped the basket in her hands. "Not Tari Ibn be this," she whispered. The crowd turned. Could this really be the same poor carpenter who once begged for work at the village square? The same young man who used to build chairs for weddings and sleep in his workshop? Now he looked like royalty. His wristwatch sparkled like morning dew. The village elders hurried forward to greet him, bending slightly in respect. "Tari Ibn," one shouted. "Welcome home, son of Okoloma." But deep inside the crowd, Zina, the once proud village beauty, froze where she stood. Her breath caught in her throat as she recognized the man she once rejected. The man she had called too poor for her love. He didn't even glance in her direction. As Tari smiled at the villagers and handed envelopes of money to the elders for community development, Zina's hands trembled. Her fine clothes were now faded. The jewelry she once flaunted was long gone. The whispers grew louder. "Is that not the woman who left him for Chief Kuro? Ihia, see how life has turned." Zina lowered her head in shame. The story was only beginning, but destiny had already turned its page, and this time the reader was not her. The evening was heavy with rain. Dark clouds gathered above Okoloma, and the sound of thunder rolled like drums of sorrow. Under the big mango tree near the stream stood Tari Ibn, holding a small wooden carving, a gift he had spent 2 weeks making. He smiled nervously as Zina approached, her wrapper neatly tied, her earrings shining in the last light of day. To Tari, she was perfection, the woman he had dreamed of building a life with. "Zina," he said softly, "I've been saving. I built a new bench at my workshop. Soon, I'll open a small furniture shop in the next village." But she didn't smile. Instead, she crossed her arms and sighed deeply. "Tari, how long will we keep pretending?" "Pretending?" he asked, confused. She looked at him, her voice sharp but trembling. "Love doesn't feed the stomach. You are a good man, yes. But what can you give me? I can't live my life counting coins." His heart dropped. The rain began to fall, slow at first, then faster, as if the sky was crying with him. "Zina," he whispered, "I may not have riches now, but I have plans. I'll work day and night for you." But she shook her head. "There's a man who wants to marry me, Chief Kuro. He can give me comfort." "I'm sorry, Tari. I can't choose struggle." She turned and walked away, her footsteps fading into the storm. Tari stood alone, the rain soaking through his clothes. The carving slipped from his hand, hitting the mud and breaking in two, just like his heart. That night, he left Okoloma quietly, with nothing but a small bag, his broken carving, and a promise to himself, "One day the world will know my name." The night Tari left Okoloma, the rain followed him all the way to the city. The road was long, muddy, and cruel, but his heart was heavier than his bag. He arrived in Port Harcourt with nothing but hope, and a hunger to prove the world wrong. At first, the city mocked him. He slept in a carpenter's shed and worked from sunrise till nightfall for little pay. Every hammer strike reminded him of Zina's words, "Love doesn't feed the stomach." When other young men gave up, Tari worked harder. He studied construction blueprints by candlelight, helped builders for free just to learn, and ate gari and groundnuts when he had no food. People laughed at his simple clothes, but they didn't know he was building something they couldn't see, a future. Years passed. His skill grew, and so did his name. When the owner of the carpentry shop died suddenly, the workers looked to Tari to take over. At first, he refused, but fate had bigger plans. He renamed it Ibn Works, and soon his designs caught the attention of engineers who saw in him something rare, raw genius. Contracts began to flow, slowly at first, then endlessly. From fixing doors, he started building houses. From houses, he built estates. One day, a businessman handed him a card and said, "Son, you have a gift. Come build for us in Lagos." That night, as Tari packed his tools, he looked out of his small window and whispered, "Okoloma, one day I'll return, not as the boy who left in the rain, but as the man the rain could not wash away." And indeed, destiny was listening. When Zina married Chief Kuro, the village of Okoloma celebrated for 3 days. Drums echoed, palm wine flowed, and people said she had made the smartest choice any woman could make. Chief Kuro was a powerful trader, his wealth stretched from rivers to Lagos, and his name opened doors. For a while, Zina lived like a queen. Her fingers glittered with gold, her clothes shimmered like the morning sun, and her laughter filled every corner of the chief's mansion. She had servants, drivers, and everything money could buy. But soon, the cracks began to show. Chief Kuro was older, far older than she had imagined love could tolerate. His smile faded quickly after the wedding. He was proud, possessive, and short-tempered. He didn't like her visiting friends. He didn't like her going out without his permission. The mansion became a golden cage. At night, when the lights were off, Zina would stare at the ceiling and remember Tari's gentle voice, his laughter, his simple promises. But she would quickly shake it off. "This is what I chose," she told herself. "This is comfort." Years rolled by, but Chief Kuro's health began to fail. He became bitter and suspicious, accusing her of things she didn't do. One evening, he fell during an argument, clutching his chest. Zina screamed for help, but before the doctor arrived, it was over. The mansion grew cold and silent. The business partners vanished, and the bank seized what was left. The gold was sold, the servants left, and Zina, once the envy of every woman, was now a widow with debts and regrets. She looked at her reflection one night and whispered, "Maybe love was never the problem. Maybe pride was." The sun rose lazily over Okoloma, spreading golden light across the red earth. It was an ordinary morning, until the sound of roaring engines shattered the peace. The villagers ran out, dust rising in the air like smoke. A line of black SUVs drove into the square, their windows tinted, their horns echoing through the hills. The chief's seat had been empty for months, but it seemed a new power had arrived. When the door opened, a man stepped out. He was tall, with skin bronzed by hard work and eyes sharp as an eagle's. His suit gleamed, his shoes polished like mirrors. The villagers gasped. It was Tari Ibim, the poor carpenter who once begged for work by the roadside. "Tari Ibim?" one old man whispered. "He's alive." Alive, and transformed. He smiled warmly, greeting the elders with calm respect. "I am home," he said, "and I have returned to build Okoloma again." Behind him, a team of workers began unloading materials, cement, iron rods, and blueprints. He was there not just as a visitor, but as a builder of hope. Children followed him, chanting his name. Women clapped, ululated, and blessed his steps. The same people who once pitied him now sang praises. But among the crowd stood Zina, her wrapper faded, her eyes full of disbelief. She watched him laugh, confident and commanding, surrounded by respect. He looked untouched by time, even more handsome than before. When his eyes briefly swept across the crowd, she stepped back. He did not recognize her. Or perhaps, he chose not to. In that moment, Zina felt a chill. She had once been the woman every man wanted, now she was invisible to the only man who had truly loved her. Destiny had turned, and its roar was louder than any lion's. The sun was high when Zina walked slowly toward the village square. Sweat ran down her temples, but her heart pounded harder than her steps. She had heard that Tari Ibim, the boy she once left, was now back, not as a villager, but as a man of power. Every part of her resisted the thought of seeing him. But hunger and hardship had broken her walls. Pride, once her armor, had become too heavy to carry. Tari was at the construction site, directing workers as they laid the foundation for a new school. His white shirt glowed under the sun, his voice steady and firm. Children ran around excitedly, shouting, "Uncle Tari! Uncle Tari!" Zina stood at a distance, clutching the edge of her wrapper. For a moment, she thought of turning back. But something inside her whispered, "You have already lost everything. What more can shame take from you?" She took a deep breath and walked forward. "Tari," she said softly. He turned. For a few seconds, the air froze. His eyes scanned her face, and recognition flickered like lightning, then faded into calm. "Zina," he said. "It's been a long time." She nodded, her voice trembling. "I heard you're building a school. I came to see if you could help me. Life hasn't been kind to me since Chief Kuro died." Tari's face softened slightly, but he said nothing. Around them, villagers pretended not to watch, though every ear was listening. "I know I hurt you," Zina whispered, her eyes glistening. "But please, Tari. I've lost everything. I have nowhere else to go." The man who once chased her love now stood silent, not out of anger, but out of understanding. Time had turned the tables, and the lesson was standing right before her. The wind blew gently across the school site, carrying with it the scent of wet earth and cement. For a moment, all that could be heard was the sound of hammers and children's laughter in the distance. Tari stood there, facing Zina, his hands in his pockets. The years had changed him, not just his clothes or wealth, but something deeper. His heart was no longer ruled by pain. "I once thought," he began slowly, "that love could conquer everything. Even hunger. Even pride. But I learned that love alone cannot grow where respect does not live." Zina swallowed hard, tears threatening to spill. "Tari, please don't speak like this. I was young, foolish. I didn't know better." He gave a faint smile. "Maybe. But we all face choices, Zina. You chose comfort over care, gold over heart. And I don't blame you. You did what you thought was best." She took a step closer, desperation in her voice. "Please, Tari. I'm not asking for love. I'm just asking for help." Tari looked at her for a long time, not with anger, but with the calm pity of someone who has healed. "Help?" he repeated softly. He turned to his secretary standing nearby. "Please arrange a small loan for Mrs. Kuro," he said. "Make sure she finds a place to stay. That's all." Zina's lips parted in shock. Her heart ached, not because he refused, but because he helped her without emotion. "Tari," she whispered, her tears finally falling, "so this is what I deserve?" He sighed deeply. "No, Zina. This is what life teaches us, that sometimes, the heart we break becomes the hand that feeds us. But not the one that loves us again." Then he walked away, his footsteps echoing softly, leaving Zina standing there as the villagers watched in silence, some in pity, others in awe. By the next morning, the whole of Okoloma was buzzing. The story of Zina and Tari had spread faster than Harmattan fire. Everywhere you turned, from the market stalls to the palm wine joints, voices were whispering. "Did you hear what happened?" one woman said as she sold roasted plantain. "Zina went to beg Tari for help, and he gave her money, but didn't even offer her a seat." Another replied, shaking her head, "That's how life turns. The poor man she mocked is now the one she bows before." Old men at the square nodded knowingly, puffing on their pipes. "That's why our fathers said," one of them declared, "do not laugh at a man's beginning, for you do not know his tomorrow." Children sang small songs in the street, teasing and laughing as they played. Zina left for gold, but gold turned cold. Tari went away poor, came back bold. Meanwhile, Zina could not step outside without feeling the weight of eyes on her. Everywhere she went, whispers followed her like shadows. Even those who once envied her now spoke with pity. At night, she sat alone in her empty compound, staring at the moon. The silence mocked her. The world she once controlled now seemed too big, too cruel, too quiet. Tari, on the other hand, had become a symbol of hope. Young men admired him, mothers prayed for their sons to grow like him, and elders spoke his name with pride. Yet in his quiet room, Tari sat by his window, looking at the same moon, not with pride, but with a gentle sadness. He whispered to himself, "Forgiveness is easy when love is gone. But forgetting, that takes a lifetime." A few weeks passed, and the village of Okoloma had begun to settle again. Tari continued his work on the new school, smiling often, greeting warmly, and treating everyone with quiet humility. But one morning, the air carried a different kind of buzz. The market women were whispering again, their voices trembling with excitement. "Have you heard?" asked Mamatine, her eyes wide. "Tari Ibim is getting married." The words spread like wildfire. From the blacksmith's shed to the yam barns, from the palm wine trees to the fishermen by the river, everyone was talking about it. "Married?" someone gasped. "To who?" "That's the mystery," another replied. "They say it's the schoolteacher, the quiet one who helped him study when he was still poor." Her name was Amara, gentle, soft-spoken, and kind. She was the one who used to bring Tari food when he couldn't afford a meal, the one who lent him her books when he dreamed of learning more. When the news reached Xena, she froze. For a long moment, she couldn't breathe. The words spun in her head like a cruel echo. Tari, married? She forced a laugh, but her voice cracked. It's just a rumor, she said to herself. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. The following weekend, drums echoed through Okoloma once more, not for Chief Kuro's wealth, not for a funeral, but for a wedding that felt like poetry. The same villagers who once danced for Xena's wedding now danced for Tari's. The same songs that once celebrated her were now blessing another woman. And when Xena saw them together, Tari and Amara, smiling, glowing, complete, her knees went weak. For the first time in her life, Xena understood that love never left her, she left it. The morning after the wedding, Okoloma was alive with joy. The sound of laughter, drums, and celebration filled the air. People spoke of how pure and genuine the union between Tari and Amara felt, a love story reborn from struggle, faith, and patience. But in one corner of the village, far from the music and dancing, Xena sat alone. The air around her was still. Her heart felt heavier than the silence that surrounded her. She had walked to the riverbank, the same place where she once used to meet Tari years ago. She remembered his laughter, his shy smile, the way he used to promise her dreams he couldn't yet afford. Back then, she thought love was a meal she could not eat. Now, she realized it had been her only nourishment all along. She bent down and touched the cool water, watching her reflection tremble. Her voice was soft as she whispered, "If only I had waited, if only I had believed." The ripples in the water spread, carrying her words away. In that same moment, across the village, Tari and Amara were dancing beneath the moonlight. Their laughter echoed like music, pure and light. He had found peace, not revenge, not pride, just peace. Later that night, an old storyteller at the square told their tale to the younger ones gathered around the fire. His voice was deep and wise. "Children," he said, "remember this, not every glittering path leads to joy. Some roads paved with gold end in dust, while those walked in love lead to true treasure." The children nodded, eyes wide, hearts full. As the fire cracked and the stars blinked overhead, the story ended with a whisper that would live in Okoloma forever. Some rejections are blessings wearing disguises. And so love returned, but only when it was too late.